All right, we should be recording now. And then I'm going to share the landing screen and hit broadcast, which then allows everybody who's waiting to get in to come in. All right, I'm hitting broadcast.
Welcome. Welcome to the 52nd Annual Pacific Northwest Labor History Association Conference. I'm Tom Lux. I'm the president of PNLHA. This would be our 53rd, but we had to cancel the 2020 conference due to COVID. The conference will be totally virtual for the same pandemic reason. We hope to return to in-person conferences next year. Before I continue my remarks, I would like to acknowledge that I am speaking to you from the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. And many of us join today from Duwamish, Suquamish, Snoqualmie, Puyallup, as well as the tribes of the Muckleshoot, Tulalip, and other Coast Salish people and their descendants. Given the topic of today's discussion and the systemic and institutionalized oppression of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, we invite you to join us in the continued learning, decolonization, and acknowledgement of historical violence of unpaid labor and stolen land. No matter where you live, you are on Indigenous land, in many cases shared or disputed territory of multiple tribes. I want to thank our partners who are helping us with the technology, the Harry Bridges Center of Labor Studies and the Labor Archives of Washington, both based at the University of Washington. I also thank our many co-sponsors who help get the word out about this conference. PNLHA was formed in 1968 by a group of labor leaders and activists who were disappointed that local history conferences did not have a labor history component. Over the years, in addition to our labor history conferences, we have sponsored many local events, such as steamer ship rides from Seattle to Everett, retracing the IWW voyage that ended in the Everett Massacre. We have commemorated the Centralia tragedy and the Seattle General Strike. We have participated in worker cultural events like Mayworks and other conferences and events in Washington, in Oregon, and in British Columbia. Our members have written books and articles, participated in radio shows and social media, and documented oral histories. Ron Versu recently published the booklet Working Oregon. PNLHA helped publish Lucy Ostrander's video on Anna Louise Strong, A Witness to Revolution. And just recently, David Jepson's excellent video, Labor Wars of the Northwest. PNLHA brings an historic and history of struggle for labor and human rights to the forefront. For over 50 years, we have explored regional, national, and international issues using music, drama, and reenactments, talks, and papers to highlight labor history. In this era of economic inequality and right-wing attacks, we need to remember the struggles of working people and their unions, because without this memory, we will not be able to make a better world. Our membership includes active trade unionists, university and college professors and students, and others inspired by the history of workers' struggles for rights, fairness, and social and economic justice. The association's activities are centered in, but not limited to, the region of Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia. We invite you to join PNLHA. Details and a membership form can be found on the website, pnlha.org. I hope you enjoy our conference. And now I would like to introduce Joe Blake, the president of King County CLUW, Coalition of Labor Union Women, to introduce our keynote speaker.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our conference. We're looking forward to having a lot of fun, and we're going to start out with our first guest speaker, Elise Bryant. Elise received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the United Association of Labor Educators because of her outstanding contribution to the field of labor education. She's a member of the Musicians Local 1000 AFM. She's also a traveling musician, so she's a part of the Traveling Musician Union, the vice president of CWA, known as the Communication Workers Association, for the Newsletter Guild, Local 32035. And of course, she is also my president of the Coalition of Labor Union Women for the last 4 years. So she's a pretty busy lady. So she's the vice president for the communication workers and the president, and she's held both positions for 4 years. In addition, as a retiree from the professorship at the National Labor College, she launched a consulting practice using her name as an acronym of E.L.I.S.E, Education, Leadership, Inspiration, Solidarity, and Excellence Consortium. And as we know, all of that is her passion. She currently serves as the nonprofit organization executive director of the Labor Heritage Foundation. And in quotes, it says the art and soul of the labor movement. Elise has launched a plethora of labor talents during her career, starting at the University of Michigan as an artistic director. Then during her membership of the National Writers Union, she used her screenwriting talents to produce a script that was aired on PBS, the public broadcasting system, of Porgy and Bess, an American voice symbolic to the American culture around the world. Elise has authored and directed 3 plays. Elise debuted in Goodnight Irene, which also led to the creation of the DC Labor Chorus, performing on the Washington, DC stage. And as her directorship propelled, she received rave reviews for labor jazz opera, love songs from the Liberation Wars, and at last, but not least, soon we can look forward to her one-woman show, autobiographical Queen of the Night. I welcome my president, a woman of love and union passion, Elise Bryant.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, my dear sister. Thank you, Tom, for inviting me, and it's good to see my dear Sister Clue, Sister President Joe Blake in the house, okay? And I think if you're in the house, that means Kevin Allen ain't far behind.
You got that, you got it, you got it, you got it.
I am a union woman, just as strong as I can be. I do not like the bosses, and the bosses don't like me. Hey, good evening. Buenos noches, assalamu alaikum, howdy. I am a fan of the Pacific Northwest Labor History Association for many reasons. I love history, so I am deeply in love with the beautiful calendar that you put out every year. We study history not to live in the past, but to remember the lessons and apply them to the time we're living in today. And I can do that because I can look at that calendar and find all kinds of things that I didn't know about. I learn something new every time I look at it. I know you have a full evening ahead, so let me get on with this, right? Okay, sisters, brothers, siblings, comrades, family. I bring you greetings on behalf of the Coalition of Labor Union Women and the Labor Heritage Foundation. We just closed our annual event, the Labor Heritage Foundation, the Great Labor Arts Exchange, and what a tremendous program it was this year. And we hope to be back in real life come 2022, y'all. And I will pledge to be here when you all are back in real time, in a real place. If you'll come and join us at the Great Labor Arts Exchange in 2022, when we will celebrate labor theater. That's going to be our theme for next year. So I want to say this and give honor and thanks to the First Nations Indigenous people on whose stolen land I stand here in Maryland, the Akahanak, the Assateague, the Piscataway, and the Pocomoke. I give honor to all those who have gone before me. Oh, oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. I stand on the shoulders of Sojourner Truth, who said, "Look at me, look at my arms. I have planted and plowed and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it, and bear the lash as well. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most all of them sold off into slavery. And when I cried out in my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman?" And then that man over there, he says that women can't have as much rights as men because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? Where did your Christ come from? He came from God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with him. And if the first woman that God made was able to turn this here world upside down all by herself, then these women here today ought to be able to get it back. turn it right side up again, and now they's asking, and a man had better let them. I stand on the shoulders of Ella Baker, who said, I'm a woman who speaks in a voice, and I must be heard. Sometimes I can be quite difficult, but I'll bow to no man's word. I stand on the shoulders of Florence Reese, who wrote these words on a piece of paper as her husband, a union organizer in the minefields, was running for his life, and her house was being surrounded by anti-union goons. She wrote on a piece of paper, which side are you on? 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 I stand on the shoulders of Blanche Garrett Bryant, my mother, who told me, remember 3 things, Elise. Change your underwear every day. Get the house and the car in your name, and never, ever, ever cross a picket line. I stand on the shoulders of those who stepped off the slave ships, kissed the ground, and willed us to be here, who dreamed of this day that we would come together as one, union, you and I on. I stand on the shoulders of Lucy Parsons, Claudia Jones, Mabel Ping Hao Lee, Dolores Huerta, Ida B. Wells, and Deb Hagelin, the First Nations woman to serve in the position that she's in the Department of Interior. Yes, sisterhood is powerful, and it didn't come about by wishful thinking. It took a lot of hard work on that last election for sure. On whose shoulders do you stand? To whom do you give honor to and recognition for that made that place for us to be here, made a place for us to be at the table? I give thanks to the labor movement, brought my family up and out of poverty. And when I see what's going on right now, people will often say to me, as a reporter did from the CBC, how do you keep going? How do you not feel discouraged under the circumstances? This was back in 2017. And I said, because I am the descendant of the ones who survived the slave trade, who survived Jim Crow, who survived beatings, hangings, and burnings. I have the DNA of those who carried forward, who built this country. No, we did not come this far to give up now. We did not come this far to give up now. So I'm going to ask Andrew if you would share the song that inspired this speech, please. Thank you, Andrew. This is written by Steve Jones, who is the music director of the DC Labor Chorus.
We did not come this far to give up now. Like days of old behind the freedom cloud, I have this faith deep in my heart somehow. We did not come this far to give up now.
I dreamed I saw Velma Hopkins last night. I said you died long ago. Then she said, I ain't dead. I came back 'cause I need you to know. She said, I saw Bree Newsom climbing up that flagpole. She took that thing down, that slavery flag would not fly. And as long as folks have courage like that, I will never die.
And we did not come this far to give up now. Like the days of old behind the freedom cloud, I have this faith deep in my heart somehow. We did not come this far to give up now.
I dreamed I saw
Pete Seeger last night. I said you died long ago. Then he said, nah, I ain't dead. I came back 'cause I need you to know. I've seen the Puerto Rican people protesting, held a general strike, they kicked the governor out. And as long as folks have courage like that, I'll be singing in the crowd. And we did not come this far to give up now. Like days of old behind the freedom love. I have this faith deep in my heart somehow. We did not come this far to give up now.
I dreamed I saw Dr. King last night. I said you died long ago. Then he said, no, I ain't dead. I came back 'cause I need you to know. I seen a new poor people's campaign, mending what's broken to finish what we began. And as long as folks have courage like that, the world will understand.
And we did not come this far to give up now. Like days of old behind the freedom cloud. I have this faith deep in my heart somehow. We did not come this far to give up now.
Where's my, do I have my
No.
hand up?
We did not come this far to give up now. There have been too many who have gone before us to give up now, to let anything turn us around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. I'm gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on a walking, keep on a talking, marching up to freedom land. If there ever was a time that tested the experiment of democracy in the United States, it was the last 4 years of the domestic terrorist that was in the White House. Okay? And the terrorist attack on Congress, which they are now trying to say was just merely a tour group that kind of got out of control. I mean, do they think that we're blind? And no, it's not anything about blindness or deafness. Do they think we're that stupid to fall for it? And of course, there are people, you can fool some of the people all the time. But we, the descendants, we're not shocked, especially those of African American descent, because we have survived 400 years of domestic terrorist attacks on us on a daily basis. Say their names, George Floyd. Say their names, Breonna Taylor. The labor movement of the United States has been forced to look at the racism in our own ranks. We have to face the fact that race is a political construct that the ruling class has created to divide the working class, and they've done it for generations. Look, Bacon's Rebellion. Google that if you don't know what it is, or put it in the chat room. I'm sure somebody will tell you what that was about. They understand that. They understand perfectly how to keep the working class, black, white, or brown, indigenous or foreign-born, separated by creating this illusion that there's something different about us or less than. I recently discovered that my community in Southwest Detroit that I grew up in was redlined in 1935. Redlined when there were no black people living there. Why? Because the community was filled with Italian and Hungarian immigrant families. Right across the street from us, by the other side of the salt mines, was another community that was not redlined. It was yellow line, which is the next step up. And it was an immigrant community too, but it was Polish immigrants. I wonder why the Polish immigrant community got a higher rating than the Italian and Hungarian, where there was, quote, no Negroes that moved in. We didn't move in until 1953. They divide us by our color. They divide us by our tongue. They divide us men and women. They divide us old and young. But they tremble at our voices when they hear these verses sung, that the union makes us strong. We are the power of the many. And there are more of us than there are of them, and they know it. And the ruling class understands. That's why they keep trying to dismantle the post office, for God's sake. Oh no, people are going to mail in their ballots? What can we do? We tried giving them fewer voting machines. We tried like moving things out, make it impossible. Now we don't even want them to like mail it in, because my God, what happened as a result of people mailing in their ballots during a pandemic? The Supreme Court on Wednesday tightened the leash on union representatives and our ability to organize farm workers in California and elsewhere. The same farm workers who were left out of the Wagner Act of 1935, those same farm, by a vote of 6-3 directly along ideological lines. They ruled against the law that was enacted only 50 years ago, after a campaign by the late, great Cesar Chavez and the Farm Workers Union. We did not come this far to turn back now. Tomorrow, I'll be marching with the Poor People's Campaign, and I will continue to march and protest and bring my voice forward to justice is done for not the few of us, but for all of us. We were up for this work, there is no doubt in my mind, because we've been cut out. We know what hard work is. This is nothing new to us. We built this country, built the buildings, we mined the coal, we taught the children, we took care of the sick and elderly. We made America what it is today, and my hat's off. And I raise my hands in thanks to all the essential workers who stayed on the job throughout the pandemic and 2020 and still carry on. But I also know we lost a lot. We lost family members because of this pandemic, that they knew what it was about. They knew the power of that virus, but said nothing and did nothing and held it back. And they will pay for it. That I'm absolutely positively sure of. Well, I'm going to leave some time for question and answers, so I'm going to close. In our hands is placed a power greater than their hoarded gold, greater than the might of armies, magnified 1,000-fold. We will bring to birth a new world from the ashes of the old, for the union makes us strong. The union brought my family up and out of poverty. The union made it possible for me to get my bachelor's degree and my master's degree. The union has taken me to countries I only dreamed of as a child: Algeria, Vietnam, Nicaragua, Ireland, Sweden. In the name of all those on whose shoulders we stand, for our children and our children's children, we will stop racism and fascism wherever it rears its ugly, evil head. It is power to the people now and forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us go in solidarity forever. You can unmute and clap. Yes, you can. You can unmute and clap. Thank you.
So I want to encourage everybody to ask questions in Q&A. You have now the chance to ask Elise Bryant herself questions. And if there's not an emergent question, I have a question if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Great.
Elise, how have you managed to keep the choir together over the past year and a half? You know why I'm asking.
Right. I do, Earl. Thank you very much. And so honored to be here with you. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, we went to Zoom. We actually tried to have, in the early stages, outdoor meeting masked. But after that disaster with the choir that lost 50 of their members, I think, to COVID-19, we decided that we would go on Zoom. So we've met every week since March 13th of 2020. And we take turns leading songs. So everybody goes on mute, and then whoever's leading the song we sing along with. And I asked the chorus, what was working? Was this working for us? This is about 2/3 of the way through the pandemic. And I asked them to give me one word, and every one of them was like powerful, dynamic, community, love, trust, hope, encouragement, and the only two negative comments were the two people who didn't come, who had stopped coming because they didn't like working on Zoom. But we've actually had new members join us on Zoom, and of course the beauty of Zoom, y'all know this. I can be sitting in my living room in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I can be with y'all out there in the Great Northwest. So old members, former members from all over the country came back and started coming to the chorus rehearsals because they could be there. And we know, you and I, Earl, know the power of song.
Yep.
And I tell people this all the time when they say, "Oh, Elise, why do you sing? You like, unlike Mahalia Jackson, I don't sing because I'm happy. I sing because I know the power of song as she did, and as you do, as all of us who sing know, that when we sing together, we breathe together. And even if we're not in the same room, if we're singing together, we are breathing together, our hearts synchronize together. And that's the power of song. That's why every social justice movement is led by song or chants, an opportunity for people to put their voices together, breathe together, and hold this space together.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a question here in chat about how we as a movement can get affiliated unions and CLCs and the state feds to really fund labor history and culture and education as an organizing tool. I think as an acknowledgement of the great way in which you wove that into your presentation.
Ah, yes. This is a question that's been asked many times in the years that I've been involved. And here's what I think, based on experience of working with a Central Labor Council, is that many of our leadership are threatened by educated, informed members. And so whether consciously or unconsciously, will do whatever they can to stand in the way of linking together in a way that connects us on a level that goes beyond the hard cash money issue, but goes to the heart of the matter of human condition, of us being able to live and thrive in a way that sustains life instead of taking life away. So they'd rather spend money, and they do, to go to the opera or the Kennedy Center or wherever, rather than coming to a concert of solidarity singers. And culture is the food that feeds our souls and our spirits. And it's not just a numbers game of counting heads and organizing, but actually bringing people together for the common good. And so I think in ways that they're afraid of it and threatened by this idea, or see it as so superficial because what? Because they don't understand the power of it. And if they did, they'd get off their golf carts and get out there and just get some theater and song and music and dance and some spoken word and rap and hip hop in the house.
Yeah.
have a question, if you wouldn't mind. I was just listening to you talk about both acknowledging the moment of crisis and challenges that we've been in the last year and a half, but also talking about it in terms of the sweep of history, and that it's not new challenges, not new dangers in some ways. And it seems like you were talking about how art can come out of that, art and culture can come out of that. What new art do you think will come out of this new crisis in terms of song, labor song?
Oh, good question, Connor. Good question. And I know Bill Fletcher's coming up next, so he's going to cover more of that history piece and really bring it up to the present. But in terms of what's coming out now, we had some incredible videos done by next generation folks. I like to say that rather than saying younger members, and because I'm a Star Trek fan also. So next generation is really important. And this year at the Great Labor Arts Exchange, we had a committee of next generation members who come to the Arts Exchange to run the whole program on Saturday. The plenaries, the workshops, they selected the presenters, the facilitators. We had translation for the first time that because they had two workshops that had Spanish speaking folks who needed that. And it was the first time at the Arts Exchange. And we were able to do it on Zoom. I mean, who knew? And the video art that's come out of it. Oh my gosh. Oh my, I wish I could put a link in the chat room and Andrew could pull it up, but we had some amazing hip hop videos that the next generation folks are going. That's their folk music. That's what I realized at the Great Labor Arts Exchange is that, this is their folk music. And so we need to honor it and bring it up and bring it out. And people started asking, can we take video classes? We want to make videos like that because you can put that on YouTube. You can put that on Facebook and get that message out that way. And I will send y'all. So at some point you have a meeting in the future you want to share. I'll show the contest winners of the Great Labor Arts Exchange spoken word and for String Buster song, both outstanding. So that's really, I'm really looking at that. And also I think that podcast is a real, another form of communication, but art also that can be used more. And that we're going to see more of that as we come along.
There's one question that kind of dovetails on what you were saying about how you evolved to a different practice strategy by doing remote rehearsals during the pandemic. Do you see Zoom and in-person meetings and songs, how are they going to coexist in the future? I think they're asking if we'll retain that option as we go forward.
Ooh, yeah, we're talking about that. I know from Memorial Day, the DC Labor Course met for the first time. Only vaccinated members could come, and we were outside on one of our members' porch patio, and when we started singing together, whoo! I mean, I felt such a rush, of renewal, and I think the things I missed most about in the pandemic was hugs and being able to sing together. But the power of being in the room cannot be replaced by Zoom. However, it does allow us to bring people in. I mean, I'm going to be at a rally in the UK on the 4th of July. They invited me to come and speak on July 4th. I said, do y'all know what day that is in the United States? They're like, yeah, we do. Come on, sister. So I can do that. I've been to 4 or 5 conferences, United Against Racism conferences in the UK because of Zoom. And so we're talking about how we do that hybrid thing. How do we merge it together? There are those who believe that Zoom, who's made $1 bazillion, is going to figure that out as well. How to deal with this latency thing so that we can actually sing together. But we're going to look into actually having a hybrid, being able to be in person and online, so that we had people from Canada and Mexico join us.
Here's a question about what chants and songs you imagine the Teamsters might use as they go after Amazon.
Good one. Good. Well, I think one of the most easiest ones is, we are union. We are union. We are union. Bosses at Amazon better be afraid, cause the union folks are on their way. We're giving them hell. Watch this spell. And I can't remember to say go to hell. Okay, there's something like that. But that's an easy one. That's an easy zipper song to put something into. And I was trying to think of something else. But that was off the top of my head.
That's pretty good for off the top of your head.
Oh yeah, and you know, we'll come. I'll go anywhere. If you want to do a workshop together and work up some chants and songs, I've done this at Harvard Trade Union School. I've gone there and had those classes make up chants and songs right there on the spot. Take a traditional song that you've known for years and years and turn it into a labor song. Take a basic chant that you know of and turn it into a labor chant that's specific to fit a specific topic. And they do it. And after the end of it, everybody goes, wow, that was really cool. Yeah, you can do this back home, y'all. You really can. You don't need me to do this. You can actually, there are people, I believe there are Elise Bryants right there in your own local, if you just listen and invite them in.
I have a quick question relating to that. You know how over the course of labor history, it feels like folks have often adapted hymns or popular music or done it to a bunch of different songs. And you just gave a great example of adapting a rock song, a more modern rock song. Do you hear people still adapting more current tunes, or are they reworking the tunes that were used as labor standards?
Oh yeah. You know, they're definitely. Do you know Al Bradbury? She's with Labor Notes. She is a master of the parody, as is Paul McKenna, who's right here, which here are we at? He's in Oregon, right? I believe. Who's churning them out? Who is churning them out? Steve Jones wrote one to Living Wage, but yeah, people are definitely using the music today. We also did a video song to Katy Perry's song. We got the right, we're on fire, desire, justice will guide us. We are the champions. The world's gonna hear us roar. Louder, fighting with power. We are yeah. So that Lynn Marie Smith took that one, turned. She's also really good at turning out really quick parodies based on current songs. But that video went quite well, and Katy Perry didn't even sue us or nothing.
Hey, there's a commenter. I want you to know that you have their two kids singing along in the car with them.
Oh, that is so sweet. That is so sweet. Yeah, I got to do a workshop for AFGE. They wanted a workshop with their kids, and so we taught them how to spell. We used YMCA to do AFGE, but we realized we could AFG. So we signed it instead. So we used American Sign Language to do the letters instead of, and the kids loved doing American Sign Language and saying AFGE. Yeah, and I'm not good with kids. I was surprised how well it went. So are there any other questions?
There's a lot of comments about appreciation. One person asked if the DC Labor Choir was the one who sang New America the Beautiful. The New America.
Yes. Black Lives Matter, America the Beautiful. Yep. That's us.
Okay, Q&A people, this is your chance.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're good?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you,
all I can say is it's just so wonderful to hear you, Elise. It's just it's a joy. You're like a force of nature.
Thank you, Earl. I feel the same way about you.
Thank you, Elise. You made the night.
And then I believe we're going to have Joe Blake introduce the labor choir.
muting me. Give me a second here. I have created the one for the labor group like 5 times, and somehow or another it's like I keep losing it. But I found it. Okay, I'm ready. Earl Peach is the composer of the labor notes, and I see that he got in 2017 he got a Vancouver Mayor's Arts Award because he's a singer, a songwriter, a composer, conductor, ranger, teacher. So I know we're going to really enjoy listening to them because throughout history we know the struggles for labor and human rights have produced music that inspires and reconnects us, and that's what the Notes Labor Choir does. They sing almost everywhere. They have a multi-generational group of people. And they say they're just normal people, but I think there's more to it than that because of the talent that they are going to provide for us. Their songs have a sense of history, and they sing songs from past centuries to the present. They look around the world for inspiration, and they usually sing in French, Spanish, Yiddish, Arabic, Mandarin, Zulu, Tagalog, and thank goodness they sing in English too. They perform on picket lines, at rallies, conventions, conferences, memorials, and benefits, wherever their music can contribute to social progress. And they're internationally known. It looks like it says they sang for Fidel Castro in Cuba, but they do a lot of stuff in Canada. And they don't have any problems like singing on picket lines. So we are really lucky and fortunate to have this group to sing for us. So I look forward to it. And so Earl, go ahead. You and the Solidarity Notes.
Thank you, Joe. I have to say that actually we are the ones who are honored to be here. It's an amazing organization, and it's a pretty signal event to have to put something together like this online. And we're going to talk a little bit about the past of the choir, and then we're going to play you some of our the material that we've put together in the past year or so. And the person who's going to do most of that is Martha. So I'm going to hand that over to her right now. So Martha's been a long-standing member of the choir, and she's going to narrate for you.
Thank you, Earl. No doubt you've all seen some of the aggregate choral videos produced during the pandemic, featuring individual videos of singers, which are then stitched together to make a video mosaic of singers. Practices on Zoom, as Elise said, have been difficult because Zoom introduces about a half-second gap between the time a sound leaves your mouth and the time your listener hears it. An early discovery was that under these circumstances, group singing was impossible. We've run practices in which the practice files for different songs are played over Zoom, and each choir member sings along with their mic muted. Of course, this means it's impossible to tell whether people are getting it right or wrong. Not to mention that people miss the experience of joining voices together in song. Experiencing that deep sense of community and conviction, which only comes when you do that. For many choirs, these practices have nevertheless been the only way to keep going, especially as singing together has been targeted as a particularly high-risk activity. The videos, which we've come to refer to as quarantunes, have provided us with projects to work on and to hone our skills, both in singing and in being in front of a camera. We're going to play 2 of these efforts for you, and a third comes as part of the video about the choir. The first video you'll see is our rendition of Mini Wichoni, or Water is Life. In 2016, resistance began in earnest to the proposed Dakota Access Pipeline, which was supposed to run from the Bakken oil field in western North Dakota. I'm sorry, I was so moved by Elise's singing and her presentation. I'm all choked up. Please forgive me. The Bakken, it was supposed to run from the Bakken oil field in western North Dakota to southern Illinois, crossing the Mississippi and Missouri rivers, as well as under part of Lake Oahe, which is on the Standing Rock Reservation in North Dakota. It was a serious threat to the Standing Rock tribe's drinking water, as well as plowing through ancient burial grounds and other culturally significant sites. A water protectors camp was established on the reserve, and eventually thousands came to oppose the pipeline. One of those people was Sarah Thompson, a folk singer and choir director from Duluth, Minnesota. She wrote the song we're going to play for you, and Penny Goldsmith is going to read her introduction to it. Go, Penny.
Thanks, Martha. Sarah Thompson had the following to say about the song. This song is inspired by the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and all the tribes, nations, native and non-native people coming together to protect the land and water threatened by the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline. The song came to me on my return from Standing Rock. That morning before leaving, a meadowlark was singing right outside my tent. Be a lark from the meadow, be a lark from this meadow, I heard it sing. We too can be larks from the meadow. We too can sing in the new day. The chorus contains two phrases in Lakota, Miniwachoni, water is life, and Mitakuye o Yasim, all my relations. My gratitude to Jeremy Davis of Lakota and Anishinaabe heritage, who suggested adding and helping me incorporate the phrase Mitakuye o Yasim into the song. Chief Averill Lookinghorse, in his book White Buffalo Teachings, said the following: the phrase Mitakuye o Yasim has a bigger meaning than just our blood relatives. Yes, it's true, we are all one human race, but the word Mitakuye means relations, and Oyasin means more than family, more than a nation, more than all of humankind, everything that has a spirit. The earth herself, Maku Unsai, is our relation, and so is the sky, grandfather sky, and so is the buffalo, and so are each of the two-leggeds, the four-leggeds, those that swim, those that fly, the root nation, and the crawling beings who share the world with us. Mitakuye o Yasin refers to the interconnectedness of all beings and all things. We are all interconnected. We are all one.
And just before I play this, I just want to mention that a long-term member of our choir who is now in the Philippines and her daughter participated in the creation of this video. It was a great joy to see them again. So here's the video.
All my relations come, every nation come, all my relations under the sun. We are one, we are praying come, we are praying come. We are the song and we are the drum. We are one. We are the river come. We are the river come. We are the boat, the paddle ashore. We are one. Miniwachoni sing. Miniwachoni sing, Miniwachoni, water is life for everything. We are the water, sing. We are the water, sing. We are the water, we are where all life begins. We are the ancient ones. We are the ancient ones. In your breath and bones we sing on. We are one. Surely water is life for everything. We are the water, sing. We are the water, sing. We are the water, we are where all life begins. All my relations come. Every nation come. All my relations under the sun. We are one.
Yes, thank you.
You're very welcome. The second quarantine we have for you is the most recent. It's called Women of the BUA, which stands for Burnaby Unemployed Association. This song, which tells the story of an incident during a strike at the Shull shingle mill in the early 1930s, was written by Earl in conjunction with a show that we all did at the Burnaby Museum in 2019 to commemorate the labor history of Burnaby. Eric Damer, who provided us with the background for this song, can't be with us tonight, but he provided us with a short video describing some of the history behind the song. After that, our member PJ will read from the original account of the incident, and then we'll play you the video. Go, Eric.
Hello, my name is Eric Damer. I am a historical researcher at Burnaby Village Museum, and I'm very pleased to provide some historical context for this next song. The first bit of context is the municipality of Burnaby. Now, Burnaby by the 1930s is very much a community of working people. Between 1904 and 1914, many working people were attracted to Burnaby because of the low cost of land and the very low taxes. Typically, people bought a patch of undeveloped land, cleared it of brush and old stumps, built a small home, possibly living in a tent next door while the house was being built. And over the years, the house was often expanded as finances permitted. This sort of pattern carried on for the next decade. By the mid-1920s, some 2/3 of the residents of Burnaby were employed in a manual sort of an occupation, either in the skilled trades or as laborers, construction workers, carpenters, teamsters, cobblers. And of course, the women worked very hard as well, often maintaining the backyard gardens that were common in Burnaby, the backyard fruit and vegetable plot, plus the backyard chicken coop, which was often very large. Children, of course, helped out with these chores as well, and the male householders often commuted into Vancouver and New Westminster on the electric interurban tram to get to their jobs. So not surprisingly, working people begin to elect politicians who represent their needs. When Burnaby finally got the status of having its own provincial riding, residents elected a Fabian socialist to office, a man named Frank Brown, or Francis Aubrey Brown. Municipal politicians also had to support labor, or at least claim to support labor. A few of them were well-known socialists. A few of them who did not express support for working people found themselves not elected. One of the men elected to municipal council in the late 1920s was a man named William Pritchard, who was well known as a socialist organizer and editor of socialist newspapers, very well known in the labor movement. William Pritchard is elected for several years as councillor and then elected as reeve from 1930 to 1932. Now, Pritchard's election as reeve corresponds with the onset of the Great Depression, and Burnaby is very hard hit by the Depression. Many working people in Burnaby lose their jobs, unemployment is very high, and the municipality doesn't have many funds, because of low taxes, to support working people in municipal projects. Pritchard and his council try to get relief money wherever they can, but they have a very hard time, probably because of Pritchard's past as a socialist organizer. But they do what they can. There are a few make-work projects in Burnaby, a few public works projects, but that doesn't last too long. Pritchard also supports the self-help group called the Army of Common Good. And the Army of Common Good was an organization that shared labor and shared goods amongst members, bit of a barter system to help them make the most of the Depression and also make the most of what small amounts of relief do make it into town. The Army of Common Good becomes the Common Good Cooperative Association a few years later, opens a number of co-op stores, and a couple years after that opens the province's first de facto credit union in South Burnaby. Pritchard also listens to the unemployed working people. He helps them organize, he gives them a place to meet in the municipal hall, and he listens to their concerns and does the best he can to accommodate them. Not a lot can be done, but he does try and he does do what he can. The people of Burnaby are also sympathetic to the plight of the unemployed, and they help out when they can, either through charity or through backyard soup kitchens and doing what little they can to help ease the conditions of the Depression. So Burnaby by the 1930s is quite sympathetic to the plight of working people and especially the plight of unemployed people. The second important bit of context for the story, or for the song, is a shingle mill at the foot of Boundary Road near the Fraser River. The Shoal Lumber and Shingle Company is actually an American company that opened in 1915 explicitly to exploit a cheap labor market, particularly working men from China. The owners of the Shoal Mill make that a condition of them opening the mill that they're allowed to exploit this particular labor market. The mill isn't immediately successful. They operate for a year, they close for a year, they open, they lose money, they have some labor conflict problems, one of the accountants embezzles funds, and by the mid-1920s, they owe quite a big debt to the Blodell, Stewart and Welch Logging Company on Vancouver Island. So in payment for the debt, the logging company takes over the Shoal Shingle Mill. So even though there's a change of ownership, locals still refer to it as the Shoal Shingle Mill. Work there is dangerous. Shingle weaving puts you very close to fast saws. It's piecework paid often, so you have to work quickly. You might lose a finger or two over the course of your career as a shingle weaver. By the 1930s, working conditions are worse, paid drops, and there are a number of conflicts between workers and management. This song describes one particular conflict that happens in 1935. And the song also points to a difference in this conflict that might not take place in communities outside of Burnaby. So I hope you enjoy the song, learn a little bit about Burnaby's past in the meantime. Thanks for.
Our member PJ will read from the original account of the incident in the song, and then we'll play you the video. Go, PJ.
Thanks, Martha. Yeah, so this was dug out of the archives at Memorial University. The recollections of the On to Ottawa trek, 1935, which started out right here in the downtown east side, Skid Row. So it's an excerpt here. One local example of that time was the shingle weavers' strike at the Boundary Road Shingle Mill in Burnaby, which developed into a protracted struggle lasting for some months and the immediate outcome of which I have forgotten. The strike was being led by Harold Pritchett, who was a shingle weaver there and who afterwards became president of the International Woodworkers of America, who is now a leading BC communist. I think the issue was the starvation wages and for union recognition. At 52.5 Cordova, we received a request for volunteers for a picket line for Boundary Road, and early next morning, 40 of us arrived at the mill. 40 men, already veterans. Sorry about that. 40 men, already veterans of the War of the Depression, all of whom regarded the police as clubbers down of the hungry women and men, and therefore of a very inferior type, and who rather welcomed a brush with the police than otherwise. Amongst the gang, I remember Red Clarkson, McCaig, Ben Treaster, and One-Arm Kelly had shown up. We found on arrival that the plant was not yet struck, and although a majority were for a strike, a few wanted to keep on working. Shortly, this minority started to arrive, but we pointed out to them how foolish it was to go against the majority and how they could never live down the stigma of scabbing, and soon got them to realize their duty as working men, and the plant was closed down. Not long after the regular starting time, An interurban streetcar pulled up at the crossing opposite the plant gates. As the car was slowing down, the driver started to signal to a bunch of us who were standing at the plant gates, pointing back into the car, quite evidently trying to warn us of something. We started toward the car, and out came 12 city police surrounding 4 men with lunch pails who all started coming toward the plant. The pickets lined up solidly at the track and told the police and the 4 men that they could not go into the plant as the crew were on strike. The police said they were going to take the men to the work. It was checkmate for a while. The first mistake the police made was in sending only 12 men. The sergeant in charge seemed to be debating in his mind on some course of action. He said, "I know most of you men here. I know most of you men." And here, I apologize. "And you're not members of the crew of the mill, and you have no business here. You'd better move." We said we were not members of the crew, but we were members of the working class, and that every worker's struggle was our struggle, and that they, the police, may as well go back to Vancouver. After another deadlock, a period of staring each other down, the police made their second mistake, or at least a young nervous member of them did. He suddenly pulled out his club and smacked down young McKeag, the smallest of the pickets. This was too much for Big Red, who was particularly friendly with young McKeag, and so Red laid out the nervous one with a beautiful right to the jaw. The rest of the police had to back up their man, but they should have just had more sense. Just as the police started to retreat, being beaten with their own clubs, along came 2 jalopies loaded with women from the Burnaby Unemployed Association. With screams of vengeance, the women poured themselves onto the retreating police, who hurriedly retreated down the track. It was a sweet little victory, the only clear-cut one in the whole Boundary Road campaign.
And here's our video of the choir singing the song.
Yeah.
There were 100 cops and scabs at the gate of the Shoal Lumber Mill. They said, "You can't stop us from going in," but we said, "Oh yes, we will." Then one of those cops got handy with a billy and the fists began to fly. We were standing on the brink of disaster if we let those scabs go by. Then I looked down the road and cheered at what I did see. The women of the Burnaby Unemployed Association arriving late for tea. They fell on those cops like a whirlwind, as fierce as they could be. The women of the Burnaby Unemployed Association were a wondrous thing to see. They fell on those cops like a whirlwind, as fierce as they could be. The women of the Burnaby Unemployed Association were a wondrous thing to see.
Martha.
Well, as I know you all already know, music is an important element in keeping labor history alive. The Solidarity Notes, our choir, celebrated our 20th year of existence in 2020. To celebrate, since we couldn't hold a big party, we created a video about our first 20 years, interviewing individual members and telling the stories of events we had participated in. Now we're going to play that video, and afterward, I have a little pitch for you. I think we're going to play that video.
I see Christmas
In 1999, the World Trade Organization met in Seattle. It encountered a level of resistance never seen before against an entity of economic globalization. Tens of thousands of activists showed up from across North America and around the world to shut the meeting down and fight the machine of capitalism. And they succeeded. Donalda Vio, a member of the Vancouver and District Labor Council, attended these protests. There she encountered the Seattle Labor Chorus, which had formed in 1997. They were widely seen throughout the demonstrations, singing songs of solidarity with the protesters. Here's a clip of them shortly after they formed.
Everybody says freedom. Everybody says
The Seattle Labor Chorus had begun at Folk Life in Seattle in 1997, when Pete Seeger came to do a concert and announced he would only come if there were a labor chorus to sing with.
The labor chorus debuted at the Mural Amphitheater. There were 100 plus singers, and there were hundreds and hundreds, if not 1,000 people in the audience. And that was fantastic. And there were other even larger events that happened where we filled the stadium. Never before in folk life history had we filled the stadium and had people waiting around, standing in line around the corner.
Donalda was so impressed with the Seattle Labor Chorus that she hatched the idea for a similar choir in Vancouver. The chair of the Vancouver and District Labor Council at that time was John Fitzpatrick, an irascible Scot with a fondness for the poet Robbie Burns. Donalda talked him and the rest of the VDLC into putting up a $2,000 loan to create what would become the Solidarity Notes. Vancouver musician and conductor Earl Peach was hired to direct the new choir.
I'd been hired to run music programs at Carnegie Center in 1984, and Donalda was my boss in 2000. So she invited me to take a crack at conducting the Solidarity Notes, because I'd already started conducting another couple of choirs. And it was an amazingly fun experience.
The choir was given a small room in the Maritime Labor Center for rehearsals. Donalda sent announcements to union offices through the VDLC newsletter, inviting people to sing labor songs together in preparation for March 8, 2000, International Women's Day. 22 singers showed up, and over the next few months, they learned 4 songs to sing. One of those singers was Barbara Waldern.
I was very keen, and I had been involved in folk music scene a little bit, learned about the traditions of it, labor songs and so on. I was really keen that the gig coming up when I stepped in the year 2000 was the International Women's Day event. And I loved the song Bread and Roses, and it was just fabulous to learn that and to be able to perform at a big rally.
On International Women's Day of what year? Was it 2000? I was participating in a march, and I had been thinking for years, gosh, I wish I could find a place to sing the music that I used to listen to on all those Weavers albums that my parents had when I was a child and that I have inherited. And we walked along, and all of a sudden, up from the front of the line, I heard these voices singing a bunch of great, old, wonderful peace and justice and union songs. And my heart just flew up to the skies.
Following its positive reception, the choir decided to keep going. One of the songs it began to sing was When Tear Gas Fills the Sky, written by an activist named Desert Rat during the WTO protests. Solidarity Notes sang this song in 2005 outside the Maritime Labor Center. It's the earliest video of the choir.
are so polluted that their fates are bleak and bare, and the babies all are
I was actively involved in the Vancouver District Labor Council meetings. When this, at the meeting at that point, it was in the big room, the old Maritime Labor Center, and in the middle, the choir actually came in the middle of where the tables were and sang, and I just thought this was the most amazingly wonderful egalitarian people's choir.
Policeman shoots me down, I'll be looking him in the eye, and I will wash their pepper from your face and go with you to jail. And if you don't make it.
One of the major roles of a labor choir is to support people on picket lines. And that's what the Notes began to do from day one.
When we went to sing for people on strike, those particularly grabbed me because they were small groups and they were people who really, really, really appreciated us singing. And I felt their need, and it was just a really, really very compassionate kind of sharing.
The strikers on the picket line just seemed so moved by the fact that we were there that I kind of realized, wow, this actually makes a difference. It has an impact. In July of the same year, the choir performed its songs about social justice and workers' rights at the Vancouver Folk Music Festival. After the folk festival, the Seattle Labor Chorus invited the Notes to join them at an event in San Francisco called the Western Workers Labor Heritage Festival later that year. 8 choir members went.
Heart-filling and enlightening and awakening and great. That was the first time I encountered the phrase prison industrial complex, and it blew my mind, opened my eyes.
Really experienced the fact that we were part of a very large movement using culture to promote justice, that we had this a history that we wanted to share, we had a current iteration that we wanted to share, and we were creating a collective future.
The Solidarity Notes were introduced to major figures in labor song, like Anne Feeney, Joe Glazer, Pat Humphreys, and others. At the event, Earl also met Bonnie Weiss, a member of the Bay Area Paul Robeson Centennial Committee. Their conversation inspired Earl to plan a 50th anniversary Paul Robeson concert in 2002 at the Peace Arch on the US-Canada border.
So in 1952, Paul Robeson gave a concert at the Peace Arch on a flatbed truck, and 40,000 people came. And it was a major snub to the House Un-American Activities Committee, which had confiscated his passport. And in 2002, a committee of people, including me, recreated that concert, and the Solidarity Notes participated. It was a pretty great event for us. The address that Robeson gave in 1952 was recreated by Danny Glover, and Ronnie Gilbert of the Weavers was there singing, and the Total Experience Gospel Choir, and the Seattle Labor Chorus, and the Jewish Folk Choir. And we had the original piano that was played in 1952 on a flatbed truck.
The Solidarity Notes recorded their first CD in 2002, over the course of a year. The CD release concert was held at the Unitarian Church on December 14, 2002. It was the first of many concerts the Notes would perform at the Unitarian Church. Another event that the Solidarity Notes participated in was a trip to Cuba in 2003.
All my life, I was reading in the papers, in the Granma, or in the El Siglo of the left the speeches of Fidel after the May Day or the 26th of July or all the celebration that they have. And suddenly, I was there in the Plaza de Revolution. Fidel was talking and I was seeing him, and there was 1 million people, and we were there.
You know, we had a tour where we met other choirs and learned songs and sang with them, which was totally fantastic. I'll never forget that. And we met the main labor union, and just traveling around the bus and seeing the countryside. It was just an excellent way to go. Yeah, so I really appreciate all the organizing that went into that, and it was totally worth it.
For many years, the choir manager was Regina Brennan, a Public Service Alliance activist who fought hard for equal pay for equal work within her union. Regina deeply loved the choir and worked hard to make it function.
I was impressed by this kind of presence, you know, of beneficent organization, I'll call it. You know, she smiled a lot. She would rattle off a bunch of things that Soul Notes was doing, and generally had a very cheery disposition. At the same time, you know, giving the distinct impression of somebody who knew what she was talking about, and that there was good, sophisticated organizing going on, you know, along with that smile. That sometimes is a rare combination, I would think.
Regina died of cancer in 2016. In 2006, the Solidarity Notes were involved in a performance of the Cantata de Santa Maria de Iquique, written by Luis Advis Vitaglic in 1969 for the musical group Quilapayún in Chile. Blythe Nuttall, a choir director from Edmonton, arranged this gargantuan piece with traditional instruments and 2 narrators.
This monumental musical to remember that is the Cantata Santa Maria of Iquique. And it said everything. It moved everybody and called the people to continue the organization, the class consciousness, and to fight for a better society.
The Chilean community in Vancouver came out for this event. It was performed twice, once in the Unitarian Church and once at the Peretz-Schule, a center for secular Jewish culture in Vancouver. This established a long-standing friendship between the choir and the Chilean community, which continues today. The choir celebrated its 10th anniversary in style in 2010 with a concert in support of the CCDA, a Guatemalan coffee cooperative, which also featured performances from local Guatemalan folklore groups. The concert was hosted by local comedian and activist Charles Demers and raised $7,000 for the cooperative. In 2016, the Solidarity Notes split into 2 choirs, the Solidarity Notes Labor Choir and the Left Coast Labor Chorus.
That was a difficult situation. Many people had a lot of difficulty deciding which group to go with, and I'm very happy that we stayed with the Solidarity Notes and with Earl. I think that there has been a change in focus in the choir since then. I think that we still do picket lines, but for strikes and things like that, but the other choir has more of a labor focus, and it suits myself and Yvonne that our choir now has more of an environmental and social justice focus.
As are most such events, it was traumatic for everybody involved. However, everyone worked on maintaining good relations, and there continues to be mutual respect between the 2 groups. In 2017, the Solidarity Notes began presenting a program of labor and activist songs in local schools.
We have put together a set of songs that we can perform for high school students, and it seems that we perform these in social justice classes, and so the students are kind of primed to be interested. And what we provide them, we hope and think, is a demonstration and description of how song has been used in nonviolent protest over centuries, and how it's used in nonviolent protest now.
They sent the monkeys to harass them and to throw them into jail. Disease and poverty led to despair.
And it was like having these kids, 16 years old, stepping out of their world and realizing that, whoa, the classroom is just one part of their life. The world is way bigger, and the problems are there, the solutions are there too. And we were singing about problems, and we were singing about solutions. And that was such an inspiration seeing my son here.
To protect this home we share on native land.
Many people have come to the choir from many different starting places and have had profound experiences. Here are a few reflections, including my own.
I remember kind of belting out those lyrics about the criminals in pinstripe suits, just kind of picking off the wages of others. And yeah, I think just feeling the power of those sorts of lyrics and yeah, this kind of way that people can respond to injustices in the world.
The politics that we were singing, or that the choir was singing and that I could now sing, was exactly what I was looking for. I like to sing for a purpose, and the politics were my purpose.
Just before we went on Christmas vacation in 2019, we sang a very short song, kind of a farewell song, just to like, you know, because we were all going on vacation and we weren't going to see each other again for a little while. And then while we were singing that, everybody around me started crying. And I didn't even need to understand exactly why. It was just such a beautiful moment, and that really marked me.
I think there's been so many different ways that we've been supportive, you know, sometimes in really big demonstrations. The Olympic stuff was very important, I think, because it was very immediate. And we were there with other choirs as well. We were there as part of a support network of music, which I really liked a lot. I also really liked it when we went down to Oppenheimer Park one night in the rain, because someone from the Carnegie Community Action Project asked us to come and sing, and we came and they offered us food and we sang in the rain for a little bit, and then we went home, and we brought with us, you know, sort of fresh socks and blankets and that kind of thing.
Stuff against the pipeline in the more initial stages up Burnaby Mountain and at the Westridge Park there, right? You know, it gives me a feeling that we're actually having some impact on furthering the cause.
I believe it was 2006, the school strike about class size and inclusions, and it was November, and it was incredibly foggy, and I was doing the 7 o'clock slot in the morning, and I was picketing at the school board office, and you guys turned up out of the fog and cold, and sang 3 or 4 songs. And I remember I said, "Who are you guys and how can I join?" Because it just changed the entire mood of the place, and I'd never heard of you before then. So that's when I started.
We were singing the Internationale in several languages, as I remember. And as we got up, we were dispersed around the room, as you do at a pop-up. And as I walked toward the front from my position in the back, I noticed that members of our audience were singing with us. And my heart flooded with, I don't know, love, solidarity, something, enthusiasm. And that has happened several times since, when the people that were singing to join with us and let us know that they know our songs and they appreciate our presence. It's very moving.
One of our last gigs was at a cemetery for Japanese people who had left the island and never returned when the Canadian government incarcerated them in concentration camps. There were so many people in the crowd who were weeping at that particular event, and several people in the choir around me were gulping up, tearing up, and even the conductor had a tear in the corner of his eye. It was wonderful to be sharing that with that spirit with the crowd and within ourselves, and the whole coming together as a union was very emotionally satisfying, and gave us a better insight, I think, in how the people must have felt who had lived there and were never able to come back again.
The very first song we sang in that rehearsal was May the Work That I Have Done. And so I've got the music, the lyrics in front of me, and I'm kind of stumbling along. And, you know, I don't think we were 25 seconds in. You know, may the work that I have done speak for me. When I run my final race, someone else will take my place. And by verse 2, like, I was having such a visceral experience. Like, honestly, it's from the tip of my toes through my body to be singing those words in this room full of people and making this music. And I actually thought it probably showed. I thought I probably had goosebumps all over, and I looked around and no, everybody's just singing, doing their own thing. But I felt like something moved through me, and I was home. I was like, this is where I need to be. And, you know, in the 6 or 7 years, there have been repeated experiences like that, both at rehearsal, at various protests we've sung at memorials we've sung at for longtime social justice warriors. And it just feels like a perfect blending of politics and art.
I went to a demo shortly after Donald Trump was elected, and there were, I think, 10,000 people there. It was a women-centered demonstration because he had shown his attitude towards women. And so I was there on my own and just kind of looking around and being there. And I heard music, like singing. And so I followed my ear and I came to the Solidarity Notes choir. And I was just so moved to hear the music. And then somebody handed me some music and said, "You can join in."
We shall overcome. We shall overcome.
COVID times are tricky. I hope that we can start going to events and demonstrations again, and I hope that demonstrations start forming again, because I think there's just too much going on in the world to ignore right now, and I do think there's a way to do it at a safe distance. So yeah, I would like to kind of get started back up this fall.
We got to find a way to keep this alive. It's really, really important. It's not just singing for the sake of singing. So any gigs that, you know, and that's why picket lines and that kind of stuff are really a godsend, because that's kind of typical for us. We've sung in the rain and the snow and all kinds of stuff. And so I want to know about those gigs, and I'll be there. I'll be all bundled up, but I would love to sing.
The Solidarity Notes has now been singing for 20 years and doesn't intend to stop. We have only started.
We shall not give up the fight. We have only started. We have only started. We have only started. We shall not give up the fight. We have only started. We're about to win. We are about to win. Don't give up the fight. We have only started. We have only started. We have only started. We shall not give up the fight. We have only started. We have only started. We have only started. We shall not give up the fight. We have only started. We have only started. We have only started. We shall not give up the fight. We have only started. We have only started. We have only started.
Whoops.
Hello,
Oh, oh,
my name is Eric Dane. I am a historical researcher at Burnaby Village Museum.
No, I think that's an old thing. I mentioned before we played the video that I have a pitch for you, but first I'd like to invite any questions. People have questions?
It looks like we have a raised hand from Susan Levy. Susan, do you want to ask a question?
What was the, Connor?
Yes.
I don't know how to unmute myself.
You are unmuted.
Oh, okay. The question that I think you see was one that I asked Elise, and it had to do with the America the Beautiful, the Black Lives Matter. And she said, yes, that was the DC labor course who sang that. And then the follow-up I had, but that ended, was could she repeat the words for the rest of the audience? But so that was sort of a base in terms of this. Did I have another question that I don't know about?
Okay, thank you. I lowered your hand, and looks like Joan Weiss also has a question.
Hey there, Connor. Actually, I don't have a question, but I see that my hand is raised. So one of those techie glitches.
Yeah, it's happening to me too.
Oh yeah, it's understandable in the Zoom world. Does anybody else have any questions that they'd like with the opportunity of the Labor Choir here?
Connor, this is Joe. I have a question.
Great.
So, Earl, have you been with, I saw that you guys celebrated your 20th year this year in January of 2020, this year, 2021. So have you been with them the whole time?
I have.
Wow.
I have declared my intention to step down in September because I think it's really time for some younger people to take over and move into the movement. You know, it's we've been out there doing it a long time, and I know that there's a whole different way of approaching it, as Elise was talking about. There's so much that's changing in the culture, and I think that really needs some reflection with
Well,
us.
I think that's really funny because almost every organization that I'm affiliated with or know of, we all want this young, vibrant, you know, Gen X, what, Gen Y? Is it going to be that easy to do?
That's a really good question. I know that, you know, when I've been involved in some of the actions against the TMX pipeline. I actually was in jail for about 9 days in May, and that was very interesting. But most of the people who have been participating in the protests against the TMX pipeline and also the logging in Fairy Creek on Vancouver Island are under 30.
Okay.
And I think they're also really attuned to the interests of working people. And I also see changes in culture within the Vancouver and District Labor Council as well. The really something I've been really desirous of seeing in the labor movement for many years, which is really taking on social action as part of the foundation of what the labor movement is looking at. So there's even a group of people within the Vancouver Tenants Union who have been speaking to the VDLC and other labor groups about the possibility of collective bargaining rights for tenants. If you think about that, it's an absolutely revolutionary notion, right? It's something that could really change the fabric of this society.
Do you mean tenants like the word tenants, like people that are renting?
Correct. Yeah. And
that's a different spin on things.
Yes, exactly. So, and the labor movement has I think really embraced issues like climate change and doing the internal debate that's necessary to talk to members about that. And so I think these things are really going to be moved along by people who are younger.
Okay, so I just got one other thing, because you said the Labor Council, but now in Canada, you guys actually teach labor is it in your public schools or something? You have something like that? A curriculum for them?
Would that it were so. No, it's I would say that labor education is still sorely lacking in schools in Canada.
Okay.
It's what's really changing is the overall culture of people, I think, and we're starting to see the effects of that maybe reflected in the labor movement itself.
Okay, thank you.
Colonization.
Yeah. So someone had a question about how we got into schools in the first place, and we got into schools because we had teachers in Solidarity Notes who actually connected with the notes and got us in there, which was really good and has been really effective too.
So when you saw yourselves doing it at the schools, did you see the kids being interested in joining?
They were interested in, Earl had them all singing by the end of each of our sessions. Okay. And I think they had a good time. I mean, we didn't have a mad rush, from the schools to come and join us, but they certainly learned stuff, I think, that they didn't learn usually in class. These were social justice classes, actually, we were actually singing in.
Thank you.
Extinction Rebellion and other kind of demos. It's good to have some popular songs if you're doing long 5-hour occupations. It keeps it rolling, keep things light or heavy.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing I think that's really changing is the understanding that we're on stolen land. We're on the land of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and
Musqueam,
Musqueam, thank you. As you've probably heard recently, that there have been some pretty frightful discoveries of unmarked graves in former residential schools in this country, and there will be more of those revelations to come. And I think the story is that thousands, literally possibly tens of thousands of First Nations children died in those schools. And so the history of Canada is pretty horrific. And so we as settlers have a responsibility to, first of all, acknowledge that, and also really address the conditions that First Nations people really are still undergoing in this country. So it's an education process for us. And I also think that the labor movement is moving in that direction as well.
It looks like we have a question from Judy Gibbs. Judy, I'll make it so that you can talk. Okay, looks like we're not able to do that right now. I wanted to make sure everybody knows about the Zoom social that's going to happen immediately after this session. I'm putting the link in the chat right now. Okay. Just wanted to let folks know that people have, Joe Blake and Barbara Bird have created some great activities and icebreakers. And before we go, Does anybody else have any more questions for the labor choir?
Martha just has a few words left.
Right. I have the pitch that I talked about. Everybody knows that choirs are groups of singers, and no singers, no choir. As simple as that. So we would like to invite anyone from anywhere to join us because of the magic of Zoom, right? We can be, as Elise said, we can be anywhere in the world and still sing with solidarity notes. Live or on Zoom at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or Pacific Daylight Time on Sundays. We're also looking to connect with other choirs all over the world to trade music and to hear each other. To find out more about us or find out where you can come to sing with us, go to www.solidaritynotes.ca. That's our presentation. We hope you enjoyed it, and thanks so much to the PNLHA for inviting us. We love meeting all you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, CM.
Yeah, I would certainly love to put something together long distance with the Washington Labor Chorus. Wouldn't that be fun?
Amazing.
Okay, Connor, we're going over to the social right now.
No, everyone can join us at 7. You'll notice in the chat that I put a link in there to the social. It's also on your program. So we'll see you in the social at 7. Thanks.
Bye, family. I'll see you. Have a good night.
Bye-bye, Elise.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Sorry, Teresa, I missed that point. Oh, I feel so bad. But anyway, thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Oh, thank you.
Good night. Join us at the social and join us tomorrow starting at 9:30. We'll have Bill Fletcher as our